Hey guys, do you ever wonder why you should start an LLC or a partnership? I am Carla Dennis and I get this question so often. Many people always say, hey Carla, should I start an LLC? Should I start a partnership? Many of you are going into business with friends, going into business with partners, and you're wondering which is going to be the best option for you. I am going to tell you what's unique about an LLC, what's unique about a partnership, and some considerations when you're thinking about either or. When you are thinking about forming a partnership, there's things that you need to know. A partnership is not a formal business. A partner is where you're coming together with one or more individuals and you guys decide to come together to start a business. And there's typically two types of partnerships. There's a limited partnership or a limited liability partnership. A limited partnership typically has a general partner. The general partner is the person that is going to be responsible for the majority of the liability in the partnership. The others are limited partners, meaning they're only going to be exposed to amount of liability associated with the amount of money that they invest in the partnership. The general partner is going to get hit with self-employment tax, that 15.3% tax that sometimes can be a lot. The other thing that you need to consider is that partnerships are pass-through entities and they're going to pass through to your individual income tax return, which is where you're going to be taxed. The limited partnerships are typically used for real estate syndications. So you may find where you get someone that says, hey, you want to come invest with me in real estate? The person that's starting the real estate is usually the person that's going to be the general partner. The general partner is also the person that has the control, the person that's making all the decisions. So when you're thinking about going into a general partnership, you have to remember you're giving up control. On the other hand, there's the limited liability partnership. What does that mean? That means that all partners are going to have limited liability. Our liability is only going to be the amount of equity or cash that we put into that partnership. Limited liability partnerships are really good if everybody wants to be on an equal footing. But you have to remember that when you are a limited liability partnership, that all partners can expose the partnership to liability. Just like general partnerships, limited liability partnerships are not formal entities, but everything that you do should be documented in an agreement. Why? Because the best way to start a relationship is to hash it out before you begin. Now, I want to talk to you about the LLC, the Limited Liability Company. An LLC is a formal entity that needs to be formed through the Secretary of State. When you form an LLC, that means you're getting together partners and you guys are going into a formal agreement. But the beautiful thing about an LLC is you get the best case scenario. You get the limited liability like a corporation, but you also get the flexibility of being able to have partners like in a partnership. The good thing about an LLC, only your investment in the LLC is going to be at risk for liability. Your personal assets such as your home, your cars, and your vehicles, they are not going to be at risk for liability. That's a major consideration. LLCs, they're going to flow through to your personal income tax return and you're going to pay the tax on your personal income. Also, depending on what type of business you're in, LLCs are subject to self-employment tax, and every single partner inside of that LLC, and they're actually called members, not partners, every single member inside of that LLC is going to be subject to self-employment tax. LLCs also are a very good choice if you're in a high-risk business. And let me give you some examples of a high-risk business. If you are in the medical field, for example, you certainly want to be in a business that limits your liability. LLCs are good for that. LLCs are great when you're thinking about having businesses where you're like possibly going into real estate and you may be thinking about selling that particular real estate. Limiting liability is very, very important. But remember, LLCs are subject to self-employment tax, not just income tax. And this is where people really need to understand it. Income by nature is subject to income tax. But in addition to income tax, LLCs are going to get hit with that 15.3% of self-employment tax. So we're talking about 100,000. We have 100,000. We have federal and state income tax, and we have the self-employment tax when you're inside of an LLC. So just remember, here's some key factors. When you're considering whether you should be in an LLC or whether you should be in a limited partnership, it really boils down to a few things. Number one, what type of risk do you want to take on? What type of liability do you want to take on? How much of your assets do you want to put at risk? Number two, how much control do you want to have? Do you want to be in an entity where you have equal control with all partners? Or do you want to be in an entity where you have very little control and very little say over what happens? Also, something else to consider is how complex you want your entity to be. If you're in a limited liability company, you have to file a formal filing with the Secretary of State. You have annual filing requirements and other things that require you to do governance. So again, when deciding whether you want to be in a partnership or an LLC, just think it through. Think about the 3 things that we discussed. If you like this video, I want you to like, comment, or subscribe.